up to now has basically been information on our network and how you could join us. It tells you also what we believe in and the things that we do to promote the green economy and sustainability. It's our first online workshop, so we might have glitches. We hope not, but please bear with us in the event that we might. Secondly, the webinar was originally meant to be a live workshop, and because of the COVID scenario, we've chosen now to go down this route. So the content of the presentations mightn't be as detailed as you might have been expecting, but that's why we've got question and answer sessions anyway. So please avail of those via the chat icon in the bottom of your screens. Okay, so basically the program is as is on the screen there. I've just got a little glitch here I want to get rid of. Except that we will have a question and answer section there after both Derry O'Donnell and Gearóid Fitzgibbon have given their presentations because they have to leave early. So,
sorry to interrupt you there, Noel. Is there any chance you could just hit the present button on that slide so that we can see it?
It's more visible to people, yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry.
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Forgot that one. There you go. Right. So basically, Derry O'Donnell will speak on the subject of energy and resource efficiency there, and Derry basically works with the Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative. And then after him, Gearóid Fitzgibbon, who is a community energy monitor, or mentor rather, will speak on grants for some community schemes and energy transition. Then after the question and answer session, then I'll speak on the topic of waste management and recycling, followed by Sean O'Farrell from Cloncannon Biofarm on biodiversity. And finally, then Margaret Murphy from the Regional Waste Management Office will offer some information on useful resources, national, local and international ones that we might all use. So I'll pass you back to Shane there and he'll on to Derry. Thanks for now.
Okay, thanks very much, Noel. Okay, so as Noel said, we're going to begin with Derry O'Donnell. So Derry is with the Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative, and I'll allow him to introduce himself. He's going to talk to us about resource efficiency. So Derry, away you go.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. I'll just share my screen there now. There you go. Yeah, so my name is Derry O'Donnell, the Development Coordinator with Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative. So I just want to talk a little bit about energy efficiency. Now you can see there in 2016, this is data according to the CSO, that the average energy spend per household was just short of €2,000, and that's expenditure on fuel and power per houses. And you can see the graph there on the right hand side of the screen. 60% of this was on space heating, 24% being domestic hot water and electrical appliances, lighting and cooking. So for the purposes of this, I'll be focusing mainly on space heating because it's the largest contributor to, the largest expense when it comes to domestic energy. So there's guides to energy efficiency, and my email address is there, and I'm happy to email out copies of these to people. There's a good one by the SEAI, and Kodima Energy Agency as well has one also. So if you want to copy down my email address, and I'll pop it in the chat box later as well, and I'll send these on. So I don't want to. Each book, you could do a webinar on each book basically. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the basic tips. So water heating is one of the main ones. That according to the graph. So if you, after space heating, of course. So basically, just adjust the temperature of your water heating. It should be, your 65 degrees Celsius on your boiler or immersion system. Take a bath or take a shower before you take a bath. That's kind of generally well known at this time. And then as regards appliances, run your dishwasher, washing machine on a cooler cycle, adjust the fridge, freezer temperature, Don't stand kind of with the fridge door open or the freezer door open, because again, it takes a lot of time for the energy to, for the cooling to kick in again. As regards lighting, then, maximize the use of daylight, open the curtains, keep your windows clean, turn off the lights, basic stuff, turn off the lights when you leave a room, install LED light bulbs, energy efficient bulbs, have a lamp on instead of, just the space, if you're reading, just have a little reading lamp or whatever. Cooking, again, don't leave the oven door open. Checking your meal, is it cooked? Try and cook meals together, put a few things in the oven together. And you can even turn off the oven, 10 minutes before cooking time, because the heat will still be in it and it'll take, it'll still be cooking away. But basically, I suppose space heating is the largest energy cost that you look at. And you can see the little house there, how much heat escapes, so 25% will escape through the roof of your house if there's no attic insulation in it. You get 35% out through the walls and doors and windows and even underground. So, you can imagine yourself, like if you want to, if you're not wearing a hat, how cold it can be. So, or put on a warm jacket, your house is the very same. So thankfully there's grants available to cater for all insulating your house. So there's like 35% to 80% for home energy grants available, and for community buildings it's up to 50% and 30% for commercial buildings for 2021. And the measures available then, you can see them there: attic insulation, heating controls, different types of insulation, heat pumps, wood burning stoves, windows and doors, solar panels, PV and water. Now, just a little bit about Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative. It's a not-for-profit cooperative with volunteer directors from community groups. It's a community-led home insulation, upgrade and retrofitting organisation. So we offer a one-stop shop for people. So we take the hassle out of applying for grants and overseeing projects and dealing with contractors, etc. And we're looking into, community-owned renewable energy projects also. So we began with a conversation in Drumban Village Hall. They were looking to revive the village. The GA team, people were emigrating, so they looked at a number of different options, and a home retrofit scheme was something that came out of that. And this led to the setting up of Energy Communities Tipperary Cooperative, or ECTC, as I'll call it now. And there's 8 community energy teams in that. You can see the different buildings that have been upgraded over the years. It's over €10 million investment in communities. 827 homes, 25 commercial and community buildings have been upgraded, and 8.8 gigawatt hours of energy have been saved. And where ECTC is also a founding member of Community Power, which is Ireland's first community-owned electricity supplier. Member communities, see them there: Drumban, Upper Church, Laura, Cabin, Kilcommon, Cappamore, Board Hill, Burgess, Terryglass, Cantoher, and we're also recruiting new communities as well. So again, get in touch if you think your community might be interested in getting involved. You can see a little video there, or a screenshot of a video when EcoI and RTE were down visiting Drumban Upper Church Energy team. Benefits to communities are numerous, improve household living conditions, warmer, more efficient houses, helps alleviate fuel poverty, saving money, creating jobs locally, using latest technology, and reducing carbon footprint, which all helps tackle climate change. And you can see here then, newspaper headline, home retrofits would be a key in the post-COVID-19 economic recovery. So, there's a lot of good from retrofitting homes, lots of local employment opportunities, etc. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about Community Power then, which is Ireland's first community-owned electricity supplier. Do a bit of work with Community Power as well. So, I just want you to imagine a world with clean energy, where communities come together to provide their own energy needs, where schools, sports clubs, community buildings and householders can generate energy for use within their own community. You'll see Upper Church School there, the Community Power along with Friends of the Earth, and they won a solar school competition. So they got solar panels installed, and the potential then for GA clubs, community buildings, etc., to install solar panels to generate power within the community. Essentially where people are prosumers, basically producing the power that they consume. now it's already beginning. It's not pie in the sky. Claremorris Solar Farm is starting up. They're beginning construction soon enough. They were supported by Community Power. There's going to be a community-owned solar farm, has just been granted planning permission outside Neenah, and Tipperary County Council, you can see the one there in the middle, they're beginning now to harvest solar power from an old landfill site where solar panels have been installed. And Community Power will be buying all this power to supply to their customers. And again, it all came from a, similar to Drumban, probably around the same time. They had a community development plan, and they eventually completed 2 wind turbines in 2012, producing 4.6 megawatts of power. And you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, there's on the website, there's a number of micro generators, little videos of those up on the website on communitypower.ie. And that you can see small hydro producers. Europe is way ahead. EcoPower in Belgium has over 40,000 members. They're buying power that they generate themselves within their own local communities. And they were an inspiration to Temple Wind Farm establishing. During the summer, the community-based virtual power plant won the Citizens Award during EU Sustainable Energy Week. And the virtual power plant, it's basically, you can see the little image there with all the people around a laptop. Instead of one big power plant selling power on to everybody, this is where everybody has a chance to generate their own power. And, as it says, consumers have the opportunity to be active players in the energy market. Communities are at the heart of it. You can see a list of communities there: Aran Islands, Claremorris, ECTC, etc. This year was the first time ever there was a renewable electricity support scheme auction, and this was a game changer, as a headline says there, and it opened up that community-owned projects could apply to take part in these auctions. You could see it took Temple 12 years to get around to get their project off the ground, but thankfully they paved the way now, and it's more accessible for many more communities. So during the RES auction scheme, 7 community renewable energy projects were successful in that scheme, and 2 of those in Claremorris in Mayo and Tuam in Galway are supported by Community Power. RTE Nationwide have been down visiting Temple and Community Power, and basically this was, what can you do? The main thing you can do is switch supplier to Community Power, guaranteed fair prices, no gimmicks, no exit fees, so if you're not happy after a couple of months, whatever, you're under no contract, no 12-month tie-in or 24-month tie-in or whatever. Spread the word about Community Power on social media, etc. Become a shareholder of one of the solar farms. Next year, probably the shares will be begin to be issued, and have a look in your own area for generation possibilities. You can form an SEC Sustainable Energy Community with SEAI. Conserve energy, as I mentioned earlier, the cheapest kilowatt hour is the one you don't use. So this is like all the energy measures, but essentially, retrofitting houses, insulation and energy upgrades. Switching is easy. You just go to the website, click on the Switch Now button. You'll be brought through a page there, stick in a few details, contact details. I suppose the tricky bit would be your MPRN number, which is an 11-digit number. It's on your bill, and you just type that in there. You get your current meter reading, and you choose which type of meter you have. And essentially, just earlier on I said imagine, but basically believe that communities can come together to provide their own energy needs, and it's happening now, and we'd love you to be a part of it. So thank you for that. There's my contact details again. I will pop them in the chat box along with some links, and you can copy them there. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Derry. That's great. And just in case we didn't mention it earlier on, feel free to drop questions into the chat box. I'll keep an eye on them and make sure that we get them addressed at the end in the Q&A session if you have any questions as we go along. I think you might have one new customer anyway tonight, Derry. I'm due to change my electricity provider, so I'll be heading there straight away afterwards. Okay, so thanks very much again.
If I could just add to that,
Yeah.
sorry, Shane, that if anybody is under contract and is worried about breaking the contract, Community Power will pay the exit fee that they have to. So it's typically about €50. So you can break a contract and switch to Community Power, and a credit of €50 will be applied to your account. Thanks.
Fantastic. That's great. Thanks, Terry. Okay, so excellent. So I'm going to hand over now to Garrod. Garrod Fitzgibbon is going to talk to us about grants for our community to benefit the energy transition. So Garrod, whenever you're ready, if you want to share your screen, you're welcome to present your slides.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I have a few slides, not too many. I'm going to tell you about the Sustainable Energy Communities Program. So it follows on nicely from what Derry had said. So what I'll do is I'll just take you through that, and maybe if you have questions during it, you can throw them into the chat box there, or maybe you'll have a chance to ask them afterwards. So
yeah, all good.
Present mode, I suppose.
Just hit put it in present mode, and you're up and running. Fair play.
Super. Is that, you can still see it there, can you?
Yeah, we can.
Great.
That's perfect.
Okay then. Yeah. So really, I suppose how there's an energy transition underway, as we're hearing from all quarters. But obviously, the question for Tipperary communities and communities around the country is, how can that transition be localized? So that's kind of partly some of what I want to get through here this evening. The context of all of this change really, I suppose, is our national energy policy specifically, which is moving in the direction of low carbon and even indeed zero carbon. And for the first time since 2015, when this new policy was brought in, we now have an energy policy that maps a path to that, and it also mentions specifically the role of communities. So, within the Department of Energy now, there's a specific strand of support for communities. So, as well, since the white paper, there's been a whole slew of initiatives I suppose from the top down and from the bottom. From the top down, you've had the white paper program, various programs for governments. We've heard about the Climate Action Plan. There's a climate bill that's currently being revised. There's obviously European context, and then from a kind of a bottom up, you have citizen action, mobilization. Greta standing outside of her at the Swedish Parliament. Young people being mobilized about the topic of climate change, and all of that. So that's quite a lot happening in the background. And I suppose in Ireland now, this is finally starting to bear fruit, where it's relevant to local communities. If you think there the scale of the change, really, if you look at the spend that Ireland has on energy, we're still nearly 80% dependent on fossil fuels, and that's a large amount of money, probably nearly 6 billion leaving the country every year. And I suppose the big actors on that, in terms of are those groups there on the left, but there is a branch of this, the energy economy, that concerns citizens, local groups, farmers, etc. So that's what we mean when we talk about citizen energy or community energy. It's what these bodies can do together to switch that 5 billion really to being spent in Ireland and to being spent on locally produced and sustainable energy. So that's sort of the big picture. Then locally in Tipperary, I'll just talk a little bit about what that looks like. Tipperary has quite a good track record in this front, even though we do, like the rest of the country, have a long way to go. Between the two organisations of Tipperary Energy Agency and Energy Communities Tipperary, there's been nearly 20 million secured in investment over the last 10 years. Now that has been on some of the work that Derry outlined there, in upgrades of homes, community facilities, that type of thing. And every million euro represents local employment. So every euro invested in retrofit can boost that local economy. So you've got a number of wins here. You've got the local employment win. You've got the win for the householders. You've obviously got the environmental and fossil carbon emissions win as well. And similarly, as Derry would have already mentioned, the benefits then for communities, I guess, are having those more self-sufficient communities, the employment and the investment, and indeed the income that will soon become a much more realistic proposition with a number of schemes there to support locally owned energy projects. So, and all of those benefits are there, as I said before, ever you talk about the national and the international picture. And I think often the conversation around the energy transition is flawed, or we tend to look at it the wrong way around. We often look at the big global picture first, whereas it can help motivate people, a lot more people indeed, when we can translate that into positive changes on a local basis. So instead of it like people having to do things because X, Y, or Z external forces are suggesting that they do it, we are plotting this course because there are also very strong local benefits in making this change. And then I suppose to support the initiative of communities, there's a program there that has been set up from SAI then to support that. Now I suppose it's worth bearing in mind that there's a county development plan happening at the moment in Tipperary and in other counties, and I mentioned the Climate Action Bill, and what that is going to do is hopefully get the rest of the state bodies and state infrastructure into gear. So for example, all of the local authorities should also be doing energy planning, and investing in energy efficiency. So that is going to be moved to a much more statutory basis. But for the moment, there is a program of support for community action, and there's a network of groups being supported by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. So this is really following on from that mention in the new energy policy of the Irish state, really. Now, what kinds of groups are members? Well, it can be everything from tidy towns to local development groups, housing associations, business groups, and I've obviously put in the Tipperary Green Business There network as a possible future member. So it's community in quite a wide sense, if you just to keep that in mind. So when it's a Sustainable Energy Communities program, there is a sort of a wide definition of communities. The supports there are broadly then within 3 strands, so a sort of a learn, plan, do approach. First of all, kind of sharing and learning, and then once people are kind of aware and comfortable, they can go on to doing a plan, and then carrying out projects. So I suppose one of the big takeaways this evening is that there's 100% funding there for community groups to do an energy plan. That's basically mapping a pathway for either a community, geographically based or thematically based, charting your course to more sustainable energy use. And just in terms of a summary of that, then there's support from a community mentor. Well, there's a network of community energy mentors around the country. I'm the energy mentor in Tipperary, but each county has a designated mentor or 2. So once a group joins, they can get up to 4 days mentor support, and obviously that's as the group wishes. If there's a particular meeting that a group is having that they want the mentor to come and address, if there's a particular event or project they're trying to do, they can use that time. As well as that, then the group can get funding for an energy master plan. So basically an energy plan, as I mean, a roadmap as such for a group to more sustainable energy use, and that's 100% funded. So that works like a leader grant. And then I suppose normally the path to these types of projects is that you join the network, do your plan, and then you access the broader funding, whether it's from the Better Energy Communities program or other strands within the SEI. And I suppose it should be noted there's a big ramping up of this across the country now. Derry mentioned the sort of more or less the path in terms of behavioural change to investing in reducing the waste of energy and then renewables. So that would be the logical, direction of action for any kind of group there. So just to bear that in mind. So that's pretty much the main part of the presentation. I just to say that the steps really for a group, if they're interested in joining, obviously go to the SEI's website, sai.ie/SEC. You'll have a chance to maybe find out a little bit more about it. You can also just give me a call if you wanted to discuss it further. As I said, it could be for your network. It could be for a community that you're involved in. Maybe there's a Tidy Towns group or a local development association that might not be aware of these supports there. I'm more than willing and available to field calls and to kind of, talk people through in more detail what's involved. And but certainly the first step would be registering as a sustainable energy community. And these are my contact details here. There is a lot happening in this energy space, but that's probably sufficient for the moment. I did slightly refer to generation and supports for generation, but that for most community groups, that's probably down the line. It is something I could talk about in more detail if people wanted, but certainly for the moment, that's probably the key messages for myself. So thanks for watching and listening.
That's great. Thanks very much, Gearóid. That's great. I think we had arranged that if anybody was interested in asking any questions of Derry or Gearóid, that we could take those questions now, because I think they may need to leave a little earlier than the rest of us. So feel free, you can unmute yourself if you want to just go ahead and ask a question. Obviously you can put that into the chat. If something occurs to you after the guys are gone, don't worry. We can pass on those messages or get those answers to those questions for you if you contact us at info@tgbn.ie. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody like to ask the guys any questions? Yeah.
Shane, I'll have a go there. First of all, thanks, Daz, for your two presentations. I have a question directly there for Gearóid, and it is for businesses who want to install PV on their roofs, because that's not normally where you're going to put them anyway. Are there many grants available to do that work?
I suppose that's still at an earlier stage, but I don't have. I can probably get back to you on that one. I don't have a specific information on what's available for business groups or businesses as such. The schemes have been rather weak in direct supports to businesses, to be honest. So that's why a lot of the Better Energy Community schemes, businesses have tended to access available grants through those. So, for example, these are projects that are submitted to funding every year to SEAI, and they bring together a mix of community, domestic and commercial projects that are funded. But there hasn't been a good suite of supports to individual communities there to date. But as I said, what I'll do, I can check that out in more detail for you afterwards. But at the top of my head, I don't think there's a specific support scheme for that at the moment. There is, as I said, a wider scheme called the Renewable Electricity Support Scheme, which is for larger projects. So if you were talking about a large 40, 50 acre solar project on that scale. But the individual businesses to date, the supports are not not there's not a specific scheme for that. But what I'll do is I'll just check it out just to be doubly sure on that one. It doesn't. I mean, there are a number of members of the Sustainable Energy Communities Programme that are, for example, led by chambers of commerce or other entities like that. It would just mean that instead of being geographically based, you're member based, and you'd be looking at your members, the community of your members as such, and looking at their path to being more energy sustainable. The funding that would be there would be for obviously the mentor support, doing an energy plan for a group of separate businesses. So you'd be trying to take a group approach to that. Funding would be anything from maybe 10 to 15k to do that, so that's kind of potentially what could be available.
Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, or if we do, feel free. As I said, if something occurs to you later on, please feel free to put it in the chat box, and we'll get it to either Derry or Garode. But thanks very much, guys. That's very interesting. So we'll continue on, if that's okay with everybody. And I think we're due now to hear from Noel Heffernan, who has changed his hat from chairperson of Tipperary Green Business Network to his role in EAPI. So Noel is going to talk to us about waste management and recycling. So whenever you're ready, Noel, please feel free. We can hear you now.
We're good to go now. Okay, thank you. Right, yes, so anyway, good evening again, everyone. My name is Noel Heffernan. I worked in the dairy industry for over 30 years, and I served in several different roles there before going out on my own in 2015, and I've set up a company called EAPI. And basically what I'm going to speak with you about this evening is principles of waste management and recycling, and what other options there might be there, just to discuss those basically, and just give you some ideas, and maybe throw you in some weird facts along the way. So I suppose the first things we need to consider here really are the definitions, and these are basically what's waste. And once upon a time, waste was considered to be something of no value, whereas in fact it's something that has lost value. And what we want to do is look at ways of recovering as much of that value as possible, or to increase it. So that's really what you want to think about in your planning as a business, or how you're handling the waste that you are generating in your business, be it downgrades maybe in the process that you're doing, or some waste that's has to occur anyways, just part of the process. So it's just to get your thinking going on these fronts. So next thing we look at basically are some of the common waste types, and the ones we're going to look at just here for the purposes of our presentation this evening. So the first one is food, and there's some fantastic figures on this which are frightening really when you think about them. One being that it's about a third of the food produced in the world is wasted annually. That's at global level. Right, we'll come back to a little bit more on that later. Packaging obviously comes in many forms. We'll look at some of these underneath here. The first one would be plastic, and obviously plastic plays other roles as well in our businesses and what we do. We've got cans, paper and cardboard, glass, and used for various different things. We've got electrical items, and finally we've got batteries. Sorry, something popped up my way here briefly. So we're going to look at all these, but come back to what are the best things to do when we're looking at waste, right? And this is really the preferences and the actions that one would do. So the ones at the top are the most preferable ones, and they're obviously also actually the cheapest options in terms of dealing with waste. So the very first thing we want to do is prevent the waste being produced. So do we need to produce this thing? Do we create this asset? Because it's all about thinking of how are we going to dispose of this asset at the end of its life cycle or when we have no further use for it. So we have to look into the future for anything that we might be planning to do or create. And so if we can't prevent it happening, well, can we reduce the waste in it? So things to think about here are, well, if I'm producing food, for instance, and my salespeople are saying, well, we must have this much product available for people to buy, and they have marketing targets to meet. So there's a competition going on. You've got to figure out what the right balance is between what you need to produce, but also you don't want to have to lose products simply because of an expiry date, for example, according with it. Now, in some sectors, then the next action that can be done is reusing, and depending on the sector you're in, a product or an asset can be reused. And a good example here would be water. And the dairy industry and the beverage sector would be quite good on this one. And I've come across it in construction as well, where people are able to reuse water and get a second use out of it. Then recycling, which is the one we're all quite familiar with and where a lot of energies are spent. And we'll come back a little bit to that now later on. And the final action then basically is treatment or landfill. And as you're probably all aware, like landfill is almost history at this stage. So the other option is treatment, and generally speaking, treatment means incineration. And in doing that, you're getting energy, at least back by simply burning that waste. You're generating heat energy, or maybe some people are getting electricity from that. So that's really the big message I'd like you, I suppose, to take away from my presentation. We want to go on and just give you some other information in any case. So here's some of this wonderful information I mentioned about that I'm going to share with you. So the first line I've already covered there, the amount of food that's lost globally to waste annually. But there's 1 million tons or a megaton of food waste produced annually in Ireland. Now, to help you realise what that might look like in volume, just imagine 2.5 Croke Parks. And you know now how tall the stands are around Croke Park at this stage. So that's how much 1 million tons of food would occupy, 2.5 times Croke Park. And out of the same study, they've established that the average household is throwing out about 117 kilos annually as well. And depending on the nature of it, then that could have a value of any place between 400 and 1,000 euros. Derry referred to shower powers there, or to electricity and waste power efficiencies earlier on. There are some power showers out there using up to 25 litres a minute, which is massive, right? We needn't say any more about that. That's just shocking stuff. A nice one to know or to realise is that aluminium cans, from the time you put them back into recycling, could potentially be back on the shop shelf again within 6 weeks. There's excellent recycling going on in the whole aluminium industry. Every ton of recycled paper will save 17 trees, plus 7,000 gallons of water being used to produce the paper. And there are other factors inside there that I just didn't include. Recycling a ton of plastics, and that's just plastics in general, will save approximately 1,500 gallons equivalent of petroleum. And finally, the one that I'm offering to you here is glass is 100% recyclable, but you can't mix glass. Also plastic, there's a lot of plastics that cannot be recycled, and that's because of the way they've been produced initially, which we won't get too about in detail here. So we'll go on to the next slide then. So this slide here basically is what we can put into a recycling bin, and just to remember that the ratios change depending on the type of business that you're in, and whether you're a big residential facility or whether you're just your own self at home in your home with your family. So what can go into the bin then, right? all these, we know all these with aluminium cans, steel cans. Grand, okay. So essentially these are the list of all the items, the cans, the papers, and I just letters in red there simply because the letters with the windows in them aren't recyclable. Just a strange one inside of all the paper that you think is okay. The cardboard, you're familiar with all of that, and certain plastics, and we'll go into those later in the next slide, right? So the next thing then is knowing what we can recycle and how do we recycle it, right? So all the waste collection companies basically want our items to be clean, dry and loose. All those items that we can recycle. And the big economic factor then is the fourth one that I've added in there, to basically squash it. Therefore you can fit more in the bin that they're collecting. And that's the only way really you can reduce your collection charges, right? So obviously we can put the plastic bottles, the cartons, the tin cans, cardboards, papers and the other plastic, they can all go into a recycling bin. However, the glass which you see in red there, well, you have to go to the bottle bank basically with that. And as you know, at the bottle banks, you've got the color coding system there. And that's part of how glass can be 100% recyclable, because we're dividing it by color. But there are also types of glass that we cannot use. Okay, the next slide, Shane, please. Right, so keep going there now again. So we've got the ones that get the green light, which we just mentioned. Anything, bottles or jars which have beverages or food in them, and the ones that we cannot put into the bottle bank, but we actually can bring to the recycling centres, are drinking glasses, vases, mirrors, Pyrex. The reason they can't be mixed is because the compositions of the glasses are different, except for the ones in green. They can be mixed and they can be fully recycled and reused again, but the others have to be treated as separate categories. Okay, the next slide, please. So in electrical appliances then, we're looking at all our electronic equipment as well as the typical electrical items. And the big thing to remember here when you're going about passing these on for recycling, that you take off all your personal data. It's the thing we could forget, but you need to clear the whole memory system, everything that's out of your electronic equipment before you send it on for recycling, right? Then, generally speaking, then on all the appliances, where can we recycle? Obviously the recycling centres, but because we're paying fees for all the devices we're purchasing, we can return them to the shops where we're buying the new item from. It's like part of the trade-in, the exchange, if you like. And on the battery front, then obviously you can recycle batteries in shops where you're buying ones of the same size. Otherwise, your car battery, your tractor battery, whatever, well, you're swapping those out wherever you're buying a new battery in that case anyway. Okay, the next one. Right, so the plastic bottles, then you can fill up this slide as well, please, Shane, yeah. So again, we've got the good ones, and then the ones in red, and I suppose it's more important to talk about the ones in red than the ones in green, which we all know about. And basically, these are the bottles which have maybe hazardous chemicals, etc., in them. And unless you know what you're doing and how to deal with those chemicals, it will be much more preferable to bring them to the recycling centres, allow them to deal with them. You may or may not have heard there a year or so ago that there were containers which had some very dangerous poisons in them, brought back to some of the recycling collection points that were organised and got great publicity at the time. So that's essentially the plastic bottles. The next one then is on the tubs and things like that. Shane, please. So basically, again, in these, the bases are all good for recycling, but the tops are going to be more the problem, particularly if they're just film on the top of them. But also then medicine packs and can't be recycled, because in other cases you've either got complex plastics involved, or they are stuck, or adhesive has been used to put a layer of aluminium on one part of the pack as well. And then the polystyrene then, which is used as packaging material, which comes on a lot of our electronic goods, is also an issue that cannot be recycled. Okay, the next one. Right, just in a recent skip survey that I would have done for someone, there were a lot of things were done right, as you can see on the left-hand side of the green section of the screen. The premise had a lot of storage available to them, so they could accumulate big quantities of all the items on the right. But because there had been a change in personnel, you can see there's some hiccups on the right-hand side in the red box. And essentially the big problem that had happened there was that they had lost the person who might have been considered as a green champion, who was dealing with a lot of the vegetables and peel and stuff like that, who was basically looking after the composting of stuff. And when that person was no longer on the team, the system basically fell apart, and he wasn't watching what was happening in the kitchen area of the catering unit on that premises. So that's essentially all the information I'm sharing with you. I could give you lots more, but I felt with the time we better call it halt at some stage. So thanks for your time. Back to you, Shane. Thanks. Sorry about the big glitch there.
And no problem, Noel. We got through it. Fair play. Thanks very much, Noel. That's great. We're going to move on, and I think we're going to get a talk now from Sean O'Farrell, and Sean is from Cloncannon Biofarm, and Sean is going to talk to us about biodiversity. So Sean, whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen, and just note you're muted there, Sean, just to be careful. So whenever you're ready, off you go.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. It's great to have you all here this evening. And let me see, my first slide. Well, anyhow, I will keep going. My team is biodiversity, and you might think, oh, we're changing subject. Well, we're not really, because, you know, the argument can be made that biodiversity is the foundation for society and for economy. So, what is biodiversity? Well, I suppose for a long time we might have called it nature, and growing up going to school, nature was the word was used. But more recent times, biodiversity is used, and what does it mean exactly? Well, I suppose it's the diversity of life forms on planet Earth, and I suppose it is pretty much categorized into 5 different groupings, like the plants, the animals, the bacteria, the fungi, and the protista, which are kind of almost a crossover between a plant and animal, and many of those are kind of found in kind of wetter habitats in the soil and stuff. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we have here in Ireland, and what do we get from it, how is it doing, and how can we help it, and give you some examples of some initiatives and then some links. And I am trying to move down, and it's not moving on there, Shane, to the next slide for some reason.
If you see the little symbols in the bottom left of your slide there, Sean, do you see the arrow that's pointing to the right? If you click on that arrow, it'll move on the slide for you.
Oh, good on you.
So see in the bottom left of the slide?
Bottom left of the slide.
Yeah, see the arrow that's pointing? You can't see the arrow?
No, sorry, no.
Okay. Can you use your left or right arrow button?
I have, yes, that's grand. Let's see now. Okay, I've covered that. Right. No. Okay. So, sorry about this. No. So there we go. So what do we have? We have 28 different species of land mammals, over 400 species of birds, more than 4,000 plant species, over 12,000 species of insects, and many other creatures and organisms as well. And culturally, we have a long tradition of connection with nature. Let's say, for example, even with the native plants in using for foraging for food or for herbal medicines or whatever. Okay. That's just a picture of some of the diversity on the sward at Cloncannon Biofarm, and you might wonder, well, all we're seeing there is plants, but there's a lot happening in this picture, because now researchers are showing that the more diversity of plant species you have in a field or a sward or in a garden, the more diversity of animal species you have. And the more smaller creatures you have, the more bigger creatures you will have feeding on those, and the food web gets bigger and gets stronger. And that's important for us all, because diversity builds resilience, and resilience to climate change, and it gives us more options in terms of even finding cures for ills or whatever it might be. Nature can find us or provide us with those. This is a plant that I've really taken to, because I think it tells a huge story about nature and biodiversity. This plant is called eyebright, and if you study it, the flower, and you'll see on the bottom of the on the bottom, in the lower petal, it's actually a landing pad for a pollinator, which is actually amazing how the plant has actually evolved to provide that facility for the bee. It's about to land, and then it guides it in along. Those little lines are guiding the pollinator into where the nectar is. So that is an evolutionary coexistence, or I heard the expression of dance that has taken place between the animal and the plant over millions of years. But then you might also bear in mind that this picture also, if we were to make further investigation, there's also a below ground connection. The plant is sending down energy through its roots and feeding the microbes and fungi in the soil. In a way, I talked about the term biodiversity, moving on from the term nature, but I think there's even a better word, which is ecology, which looks at the relationship. And I think if we can understand the relationships that's happening in our surroundings, maybe we can have a greater respect for it. And just also, this is a nice, I suppose, you could say it's a tourism promotion picture for Cloncannon, but no, it's just highlighting that, you know, we humans are part of biodiversity, and a huge amount to gain from it. And these are some of the benefits we get from the plants for pollinators, which provide us with food. Habitats for wildlife, shelter for ourselves and for animals, water filtering. If soil is managed really well, it can clean water, filter water, minimize flooding. Carbon sequestration, again, is down to good management of the farmland and land in the landscape. And the soil provides nutrient cycling and soil formation, and of course the microbes and the fungi are very important within that. Other benefits include natural food sources like fruits, nuts, and fungi, like mushrooms and other foraging plants and stuff. Recreational activity is very, very relevant, of course, in this year of 2020. Livelihoods, I suppose one good example of that is the farming community. And then outside of farming, you have productive and non-productive areas across the landscape. And more of it is just, wildlife value, homes for wildlife, and that web of life just interacting around us. And so nature and biodiversity is everybody's business, like any of the members of Tipperary Green Business Network or any other businesses, depending on it for source of food and fiber and minerals and materials, and those other services that I mentioned earlier. I put in this poster into this slide because, again, I think it illustrates the interconnectivity and how you can see on the outside of this poster there's lots of different plant species, and that will provide lots of different food sources for the insects and spiders and ladybirds and so forth, and it's building a stronger food web within that system. And looking underneath our feet into the soil, again, it's not just clay under our feet and a few earthworms. There's a whole web of life there as well. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have above ground, below ground interactions, and there's a lot of research happening on that at the moment. And even if we look at a pond or a stream, again, you have at the bottom of that slide there, you're going to have the plant species like the algae and the microscopic plants, but you also have on there as well detritus, which is kind of dead plant material, which is the food source for the next level up, and which is the food source for the next level, and so on. And you could add in the otter to the top there as well if you wanted. Okay. But in Ireland, there's lots of pressures on biodiversity, and you will probably know many of them yourselves there. Agricultural intensification, land use change, peatland degradation, afforestation, marine degradation, freshwater pollution, invasive alien species, and I suppose in a way it could be argued also that government policies somehow lets nature and biodiversity slip between different departments, and that's evident from the continuing decline. And this is just evidence of that decline. We can see there that a third of Irish species are in decline, and 18% of the butterflies, 17% of dragonflies and damselflies are threatened with extinction. And as recent as 2019, there was a study done on 202 bird species. 63% are threatened and 37% are favourable. And as you can see there, there's 37 species on the red list, so that those are severely threatened with extinction. And the ones on amber are, well, they're less threatened, but still in the danger zone. And so, I suppose out of concern for the decline in biodiversity, there has been kind of a move towards trying to put a value on biodiversity and what services it gives to community and industry and so forth. So you can see some phenomenal figures there in terms of the value of biodiversity to the Irish economy. And you can, huge figures there. So I won't dwell too much on those, but it's a huge benefit. And so, I suppose I try to keep positive and look at some positive things that are happening, despite the fact that I suppose in an effort to address that decline, the Common Agricultural Policy at EU level is trying to introduce more eco schemes and results-based payments for farmers for providing public goods like that I mentioned earlier, like clean water, clean air, pollination, all those things. So the farming community will hopefully adopt these in the next round of the Common Agricultural Policy, which is due in January of 2022. Okay. It's also positive to see that the organisation like the GAA and the Ladies Gaelic Football Association, the Community Camogie Association, and local authorities across Ireland are launching green clubs projects. So trying to encourage nature and biodiversity, adjacent to the pitch and so forth. Okay, and providing money for energy savings and waste and plastic reduction. Okay, and another really positive initiative coming from the Community Foundation of Ireland, which kind of links up with businesses to support businesses to become more sustainable and have low carbon economy. So this year in 2020, they supported quite a few communities to engage ecologists to do a biodiversity baseline study for the community and then come up with biodiversity action plans. So that's another really positive initiative across the country. And again, going back to the farming community, there's about 23 different projects funded through the European Union Innovation Partnership to really try to rebuild and enhance the different habitats. And I'll give you an example of some of those, just I mentioned a few of them. There's the Hen Harrier project, there's the Pearl Mussel project, and I just know also there's a Bride River project down in County Cork, which is trying to increase biodiversity along the buffer strips along beside the Bride River. And of course, it's great to see the support for a breeding curlew project as well. And so that's just to mention a few. There's the Pollinator Plan, which is a great plan to engage community around different initiatives to try to support the different pollinators, not just the the bumblebees and the honeybees, but also the hoverflies and lots of others as well. And they have produced publications like this for schools, this one for local communities, and then of course there's one there also for the farmers as well. And there's an excellent publication called Gardening for Biodiversity, with wonderful ideas there. And then this is another one for businesses. I know we have many businesses attending tonight, but this one is the Biodiversity Handbook for Businesses, which is an excellent publication giving many case studies of how businesses are taking action for biodiversity. Okay, and okay, so yes, I know I'm limited to time, and so I think the time has come that you know, it's no longer good enough to be talking about halting biodiversity. The time has come to start to be building biodiversity, whether it be leaving an area of your lawn or creating a pond, or so many other different ideas. I mean, maybe even like some of the previous speakers spoke, you know, consuming less and you know, promoting biodiversity within businesses and so on. So if I had more time, I would give you a list of lots of different things that we can do. So there's a few links that can be shared with the attendees, useful resources. And thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Sean. Well done. So some very interesting images there from an idyllic looking Cloncannon. So thanks very much for that. We're finishing up this evening with Margaret Murphy from the Southern Region Waste Management Office, and Margaret is going to talk to us about some useful resources that are available for us online in relation to green business and green in general, green in the home. So thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Shane, and good evening, and thanks for the opportunity of speaking to the group. I'm with the Southern Waste Region Office. It's an office that's funded by the local authorities in the Southern Region. There's 3 offices in the country, and Tipperary County Council is joint lead authority with Limerick City and County Council in running and funding our office. So just to mention who we are. I'll just give a quick skim through resources, online resources. Now, I know many of you will already know some or all of these, so I'm not going to dwell on any particular links, just to show the variety of quick information that's available for people without it being too complicated either. You know, it's just readily available information, and no better place to start than local, and I'll just show a couple of the examples there in a moment. As well as websites, what's linked also, and what's really very important to keep up to date minute by minute, would be the social media like Twitter. And it's great that Kate Walsh, coordinator of Tipperary Green Business Network, has managed it so well. There are now 2,000 followers of the Tipperary Green Business Network Twitter. Nationally and indeed internationally, there are followers. So that's a great success story. Okay, Tipperary, just the website. It's got information up particularly, and what's important is it shows the membership and who's who, and what better way to share information than to be networking among fellow business people with the same interests and sharing advice and sharing good practices. So that's Tipperary Green Business Network. It's quite a unique network in the country, and it really works for every member. It's got, you know, there's newsletters and other resources as well. So for anyone, it's a good one-stop shop, and indeed it shows one of the benefits of being a member of the network as well. You can rely on each other for information. Another local one, Tipperary County Council, and the same way with every council around the country, they've got their environment section. They show what local initiatives are there, recycling facilities, tips on recycling awareness, waste prevention, and it's very relevant locally, and it's well worth checking their environment section. And I know that Garrod mentioned earlier about the Tipperary Development Plan, and actually it's the 16th is closing date for pre-draft submissions, and all the information is on the Tipperary Council website. Nationally, there's quite a range of, I'm just going a few of these. I haven't listed them all there because it's not easy to list, but I think I've picked out some relevant ones, especially like waste, energy, water, and general environment. So I'll just show a couple of them. Top of the list, and without being biased, the three regional offices have set up this website. We've got department funding, and it's like an A to Z of good practices in waste management. The diagram there shows the fellow, the cartoon of the guy not knowing what to do with his broken vacuum cleaner, and that relates to WEEE, and Noel talked about what to do with waste electrical equipment when you're buying your new one. You can take your other one back and so on. So it's like an A to Z, and it's got nice topical items like Reuse Month, which was October just passed. So mywaste.ie, it's ready information, and in fact, soon our offices are going to be putting up a commercial waste section there too, where we'll have nice toolkit and posters, signs, booklets, and so on, and videos for the commercial sector. So that'll be happening hopefully at the start of next year. Right, Environment Protection Agency, I grouped three together, their own website, which is a nice infographic section, which at a glance shows how we're doing environmentally. For business, they've got greenbusiness.ie, which is nice. It's like a tool for someone, maybe a smaller business. You key in, it's like a questionnaire: energy, waste, water, environmental management, and you get back an action plan, what your baseline is, where to go from here, what improvements to implement. It's a quick plan that you can have for your business. And then on the right, stop food waste. I showed the business section there, like catering, but it's nearly more for homes. It talks about planning your menu, whether at work or at home, savvy shopping, managing your waste, your food, so that it doesn't get wasted. So there are 3 EPA funded websites, and plenty of practical guidance. Okay, I won't talk much about energy because already we've had Derry and Garrod speak very much on the benefits of saving energy and availing of funding, and it's all through SEAI.ie in particular. So plenty of tips there for home and business. And likewise, not to forget water, the Irish Water website has tips for conserving water, and they're not very fancy, but they're just whatever every household and business can apply, like taps, making sure boiler timers aren't and that in the simple example of the shower versus the bath, of course. And Sean is our resident expert on biodiversity, so I'm just referring to biodiversityireland.ie, and they actually showed the bumblebee, and I know that's one example where they were encouraging the ordinary citizen to report in on sightings of bumblebees over the summer, so that there could be a good study of how they're doing. I forget how many varieties of bumblebee there are, but they're encouraging people to take part. And then international sustainable development goals, there's 17 of them. It's not just environment, it's general well-being of people and reducing poverty and climate action, sustainable production, and it's the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And another very topical item these days is the circular economy. And there's the EU circular economy. There's now an Irish circular economy plan as well, produced by the Department of Environment, the government, and Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They're well known for having got the circular economy going. So it's all about reusing, and keeping everything in the loop and wasting very little. So that's it. Websites, social media, and indeed taking part, becoming a member of a network, whether it's an environmental network, a business network, your local activities, is the way to share information. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Margaret. That's great. Loads of information there that could be accessed and used by people and businesses. So we are running a little bit over, and I apologize if anybody is rushing to get to watch anything on their televisions, or just really we did say we'd wait till the end to take any questions and answers. I have been keeping an eye on the chat, and we did have one person who apologized from Toronto in Canada, and they had to rush to another meeting. But I'm going to open the floor really to, feel free to unmute your mic and ask any questions that you think any of the speakers may be able to help you with. Okay, we have been recording the workshop. So what we're going to do is we'll save the recording and we'll make it available on our website as a resource. So, and if you do want to get any of the information that was shared here tonight, please just get in touch with the network, info@tgbn.ie. And of course, if you're interested in joining, we'd be delighted to have new members, and all new members are welcome to come along and either learn or share and participate in how you've helped either improve your own business or the challenges that you might face that maybe other organizations or individuals may be able to help with. Again, I'm encouraging you to feel free to ask a question if you have any. Okay, as I said, feel free to drop us an email or get in touch and go to our website and see maybe what other information is there. There is an application form available on our website to join. At the moment we have waived our fees this year in light of COVID. There's lots of benefits there. It's very cost effective to join up, obviously, if it's free, but there are sometimes small fees, and there may be in the future but it reflects the size of your business. Okay, so thanks very much everybody for coming along. We really appreciate your attendance, and I'm not going to keep you any longer just to try and squeeze some questions out of you. So hopefully we've answered some questions before they've been asked, or at least you've picked up some information. We really do appreciate people attending, so thanks very much, and hopefully we'll see some of you again in the future.